Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, one of our favorite episodes to do every single year, and that is the day after the NFL draft. You take just a really early sneak peek at some of the names that are going to get their name called in next year's NFL draft, a way too early 2026 NFL mock draft. And Dill, I know this is going to heat up a lot of college football fans, and look, rightfully so. I feel kind of sick to my stomach with some of the players that we left off this list, but it gives us kind of an opportunity to get a sense of, all right, who has the most NFL draft talent going into the 2025 year. Though it's no coincidence. You look at Ohio State putting 15 guys in the NFL draft. You look at Michigan last year, the national champs. I believe it was 14. Like the teams that pump out the NFL talent, normally the teams that are kind of making a run in the college football playoffs, fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, whether you're an NFL fan kind of getting a early look at some of the names for next year, whether you're a college football fan that's kind of tuning in, y'all let it fly in the comment section, right? If you're watching this episode, chances are you got a name that you think is going to rise up boards over the next 12 months. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, let's open this up. And I think where you want to start is who's the best player that's going to be picked in next year's NFL draft as we sit right now? It's Caleb Downs, at least in my opinion. Now, does he go 1-1? No, probably not. It's going to be a quarterback if we had to guess. Dill, there's a lot of young quarterbacks that have the opportunity to make a lot of money over the next 12 months. I think it starts with Arch Manning at Texas, who we have coming in at number 4. I wanted to put him 1-1, but I kind of want to see him play a little bit more consistently in 2025 before we do that. Who are the other quarterbacks that you think could be in that 1-1 NFL draft conversation going into 2025?
I really think there's probably only two, and it's probably Lenoris and Arch, just because the athletic
Oh,
and the ability for their high end ability is probably warrants that kind of 1-1
yeah.
conversation. But I think there is Cade Klubnik's first rounder to me. I think he will be a top 15 pick. I kind of have him a little higher than you have him on my big board, if I
Yeah.
would say, like where I think these guys rank. I think he's kind of in that 10 to 15 range. That's sort of where I put him. And then John Mateer is the real X factor. I do agree with you. I think, to me, I haven't seen it from Nussmeier and Drew. Those are the two others that I think a lot of people have. I just haven't seen those two elevate their team the way that maybe a Lenora Sellers has, or even a Cade Klubnik was able to do last year. So I'm not ready to throw them in that category yet. John Mateer, you talk what he did for Washington State and what he could do for
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
so it's almost like the Cam Ward conversation where it's like now you go on the biggest stage and you go and do what Cam Ward did last year. There's a chance you're going to be getting your name called early. Now, my question with John Mateer is not necessarily the physical ability. I think it's what a lot of Oklahoma fans have the question of going into 2025. Like, is there enough around John Mateer in terms of offensive line pass protection, the run game? Are there enough pass catchers on the outside? Like, one of the things that really elevated Cam Ward is he came into an offense that was elite in pass protection, had a run game to work off, had a nice crop of wide receivers who are going to make some careers in the NFL. Does John Mateer have that in the SEC at Oklahoma to really show like what he can be as a quarterback? That's the question I have. You left out a name that I think people got to talk about. That's Dante Moore at Oregon. Dill,
Yeah.
arguably like the most gifted thrower of the football that we're going to see in the country in 2025. Now, it's been a little bit inconsistent, and you saw him as a true freshman. It wasn't great. What I would tell a lot of college football fans is that, look, this kid was put in a really bad spot as a true freshman at UCLA. Got an opportunity to, he didn't necessarily redshirt, but kind of sit behind Dylan Gabriel. And now is going into 2025 with Dill. If there's one thing we learned in that Oregon spring game, they got dudes on the outside and they got a quality offensive line. It's an infinitely better situation with an immensely talented quarterback. Nobody's talking about this kid as a potential top 10 NFL
And
draft pick.
Arch Manning kind of gets the benefit. He is getting more of the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if you threw
Agreed.
Arch Manning into that UCLA situation where he lit the world on fire. I'm not sure.
Agreed.
That was a dumpster fire. So that's a that's a fair call out on my part. Dante Moore, certainly. I mean, he's a guy who easily could put himself in that 1-1 conversation. He certainly has the talent to do it. He's in a really good system. He's got a lot of talent around him. Dante Moore, he'll be an interesting one because if he plays like that, then Oregon's probably got a very good crack at a national title, but
Yeah.
also you just know what Dante Moore can be. We've
Yeah.
certainly seen him make
And
some
look
great.
at Will Stein and what he's done. Will Stein, Dan Lanning, the Oregon offense, like Bo Nix and then Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore. He's the most talented thrower of the football out of those two. And that ain't no shot at Dylan Gabriel or Bo Nix. That's just how I feel about Dante Moore coming out of high school and what we've seen from him in spots during his college football career. The X factor is Nico. I didn't put him in my first round. I just think it's a bad situation, Dill. Like
But
really,
you didn't see it last year. He
no,
didn't
agreed.
play first round to level. He wasn't even really close.
Yeah, I know, 100% agreed. So we covered Caleb Downs. Let's talk about these tackles that I have 2 and 3. I had him high because these are some freaky dudes. I would argue the physical attributes might be better than guys like Will Campbell and Calvin Banks that we saw that go top as the tackles this year. I think the knock on Francis Maui Noah is that can he play left tackle? I don't care because Dill, it's hard enough to find good tackles. Like I don't care if you play left or right. I want good tackles. And the thing, like, you're seeing him get better as a football. Like it wasn't bad as a freshman in 2023, but it wasn't great. Much better in 2024. Like if this kid takes another step in 2025, you're talking about a top 10 NFL draft pick. Caden Proctor's this tricky one, man.
Yeah, I don't see Caden Proctor like that high on the board right now. I kind of
Right
had him
now.
more
Yeah.
right around the
Yeah.
10 range. That's kind of where I think he's kind of sitting because you just didn't see a big enough step, in my opinion, from his freshman year to his sophomore. You still saw some inconsistencies, still getting beat on the edge a little bit more than you probably like to see. To me, he's one that, yeah, the physical talent is probably higher than Francis, but Francis playing better football. I think he took a much bigger step from his freshman year to his sophomore year. I still need to see it from Caden Proctor. So to me, I had him a little right around that 10 range. That's kind of where
So
I have him.
here is a conversation that I do want to talk about really quick. We were very hard on both the Alabama tackles last year, right? Elijah Pritchett and Caden Proctor. Going back and watching Dill, Jalen Milroe did not do them any favors in terms of his pocket presence. You know what I mean? Like he was just so skittish in the pocket at times, especially more in 2023. And you're right. Like, let's see if we see the step. And that's the tricky part or the sticking point with Caden Proctor is I wish we saw a bigger step in the right direction in the 2024 year. Can we get that going into year 3? Dill, the story here, Clemson, I think, has a great shot at putting 2 guys on the defensive line in the top 10 of the NFL draft, and TJ Parker and
I
Peter
had those
Woods.
two top 5. I
Yeah.
think in terms of just pure play, they're top 5 players. They've both been dominant wall to wall. They came on as freshmen, played really good. Both played dominant football last year.
Well, the thing with Peter Woods is, like, I know it wasn't as dominant from him in 2024. Like, he was getting mixed and matched. Like, they had some serious depth
from a
issues.
stat standpoint, but I still feel like the play on the field
Yeah.
is so disruptive. He's a monster.
Here's the guy that people got to start talking about, like, more in the college football landscape than anything. That's Keldrick Falk at Auburn. Like, he is at Dill, kind of like Michael Williams vibes. Like, this is a big, long athlete with devastatingly powerful hands, but also like the ability to win on the outside. And here's what I love about Keldrick Falk. He's a hammer against the run too. Like very, very disruptive as a pass rusher. Not necessarily the sack master that maybe a guy like TJ Parker is, but man, is he good against the run as well and disruptive as a pass rusher.
And that's a perfect comp, like what Michael Williams was. Yeah, Michael Williams wasn't like a Von Miller type pass rusher necessarily. He didn't have that twitchy bendability on the outside, but hyper disruptive, really good. And talk about what Keldrick Falk's doing is he took a monster step.
Yes.
Like his freshman year,
Was
you
good.
saw some moments, but it wasn't like great football as a freshman. And then he goes into his sophomore year and just I thought he was dominant. I think he's one of the best edge rushers in the country now.
So Caleb Banks, also like to me, really good. And I feel like people kind of sleep on him because he's been around the block a little bit. The month of November for Caleb Banks, arguably, like outside of the top dogs like Mason Graham last year, like that was some of the better interior defensive line play that we have seen. Talked about Lenore Sellers. Like Dill I think the question here is like, is Jeremiah Love the Ashton Genty of this class? Whereas like, is he going to go in the top 15? I think he certainly has the opportunity to in the 2026 or 20. Now we're talking 2026 NFL draft. Get my years right.
Jeremiah Love, to me, far and away the best running back right now in college football, or heading into this year, I should say. So again, that's where it's tough because you can be the best running back, but you need to be generational if you're going to earn. generational is probably a little strong, but you need to be like a really good running back to go really high. If you're just ranking him as a player, he probably is in that range because, I mean, just a really complete running back, can run hard, can catch the ball. He's up
Any
there.
other running back that could get into that conversation? Like, to me, it's probably Nick Singleton at Penn State. It may be Justice Haynes at Michigan, like what we saw from the spring game. But I think Jeremiah Love is probably head and shoulders best running back in the country going into the year. Dill, Ruben Bain.
Right now, I don't have another first round running back.
Ruben Bain. Is he going to be?
He played better as a sophomore, I think.
Well, but yeah, that's what everyone's going to say. He was banged up. Like, I don't think people understand how dinged up he was in the 2024 year. It kind of like came out after the year, was working with some really nagging injuries. I just like, is the NFL going to love him with the lack of length? You know, like these GMs kind of get a little nerdy with the arm length and that type of stuff, but that is really, really explosive, extremely powerful cat. I mean, he was about as dominant I've seen a freshman play at the Power 4 level in a while, like physically. My question is, the NFL going to love him? Anthony Hill, I'm interested. Like, I'm kind of just going through the players higher.
I have him around like 7 or 8. I think when you talk, you need to be a great linebacker to go really high, but he is such a playmaker. I think his ability to sack the quarterback, I think he's just really complete. He's like a very next level athlete in terms of like what I look for at the linebacker spot, but he doesn't give up a ton in terms of his physicality in the box.
I'm interested.
I think he's a top 10 player.
I'm interested to see if they use him off the edge more. I mean, like, I'm not going to go out and say like the Abdul Carter route because I don't know if he's necessarily big enough to like play on the line of scrimmage coming off the edge consistently. There's a ton of pass rush juice. And like, it's the same conversation we had with Abdul Carter 12 months ago. It's like, this kid is one of the more dominant players in all of college football. Now you have to put him in opportunities to really have his fingerprints all over the football game. Do they do that going into year 3 of this kid's career? Dill, the first pass catcher off the board for me. And this is me just planting my freaking flag. Kenyon Sadiq at Oregon, tight end. Similar to this year, Dill, where it's like, look, if you're looking for dynamite wide receivers, you're probably going to have to wait till 2027. That 2027 wide receiver class has the opportunity to be like generational. This year, there's not a ton of wide receivers that are popping like early. Like, I think Carnell Tate might be like my wide receiver 1 heading into the 2025 year. Dill, Kenyon Sadiq, it's his year, right? He came in, 220 pounds from the state of Idaho, played decent as a freshman, took a step into year 2, but with all the difference makers that Oregon had, like Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, and Terrence Ferguson at tight end, didn't necessarily get the opportunity I wish he got. Like Dan Lanning said in the spring game yesterday, he's going to get 80 plus touches this year. And if he does that, like, I could see him being that Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren presence for the Oregon Ducks in the 2025 season.
And you saw what they liked about Colson Loveland, like that ability to play wide receiver essentially from the tight end spot. And Kenyon Sadiq, he certainly has the athletic profile to do it. Now, again, you haven't really seen the production yet. I didn't really have him this high. I kind of have him maybe at the back end, like 30,
but
31,
see, yes, it's a little bit of a projection because the production isn't quite there. I think the production is going to be there this year. Like, there was just too many mouths to feed in the Oregon offense in 2024. Look, you have to.
I guess I think if you're going to go that high and you're saying like, because that's a really high pick for the tight end spot, well, you got to. To me, you got to figure out a way to get yourself fat because like you're that good.
Well, Dill, let's be honest about Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren last year. Like, they weren't competing with many mouths to feed. On that best,
yes.
Like, I think Kenyon Sadiq and Dill, when you're drafting a tight end this high, you need a difference maker. Like, what can Kenyon Sadiq do? Can inline block, can stretch vertically, dynamite after the catch, maybe a little bit more nuance with his route trees in terms of work in the middle of the field. If that comes along, he's the best tight end in the country. I don't think it's that close. Jermod McCoy, cornerback 1 for the boys. Probably the best pure cornerback that's going into 2025. Now you just got to make sure you're healthy coming off the offseason injury that he suffered. But if you get the Jermod McCoy we saw in 2024, best cornerback in the country.
You probably are a top 10 pick. If he gets that healthy, I think he's a top 10 talent because Yeah, I mean, his freshman year at Oregon State was certainly dominant, but what he was doing early for Tennessee before he got hurt, I mean, really impressive. Like great ball skills, really elite in man coverage. I think he's a really high level corner. I'd have him top 10 if he
Derek Moore,
back to form.
Derek Moore, Mateo, you. Uh, Derek Moore to me is like the most underrated player in the country almost. And I don't know, I know I'm a Michigan fan, so maybe I'm wearing like some maize and blue tinted glasses. I don't even think the Michigan fans like gave him enough credit for how dominant he's been the last couple of years. Getting him back for one more year, massive. Mateo used the one I want to talk about. He could be a top 10 pick because what you're seeing from him is like we all know he is just like devastatingly physical as an edge defender. Very, very good against the run. Both those Oregon edge, like Tatum Tuioti, really could be in this conversation as well. I went with Mateo because Dill, you saw the step as a pass rusher in the 2025 or 2024 season. You get another step. You're looking at a devastating pass rusher, elite against the run, really freaky good athlete. I mean, this is a big edge rusher that has the ability to win on the outside shoulder. He's the one that I'm looking at and say we could be talking about Mateo U being a top 10 pick
No,
in
and
12
that's the
months.
step that you probably want to see is that more of that twitchiness because again you see the
But it
physicality
came.
you saw it certainly go in the right direction. I think you're a little too low on Danny Dennis Sutton when we're talking the edge spot.
Okay.
I have him
Fair.
behind TJ Parker and in like that. He's kind of my next guy up. I think Danny Dennis Sutton is incredibly, and you talk about another guy who flies a bit under the radar because he's played behind some real monsters,
Yeah.
notably Abdul Carter, and then Chop Rotley. We
Yeah.
forget
Yeah.
they had some great guys the year before too. So he's played behind some really good players. I think to me, I think he's a guy. I had him in that top 10 range. I think Danny Dennis Sutton to me, right with Keldrick Falk in terms of like his ability to dominate games.
Christian Miller, Georgia defensive lineman, trending up. I feel like he should. I think he very well could be. And I don't know how much higher he'll get than around the late teens. K. Klubnik. Dill, here's the thing with Caden. I know you talked about him earlier. Really massive step in 2024. Like, can he take another step in 2025? That again, you talk about this Clemson team. There's a lot of Clemson, and we got what 4 names for Clemson in the top 32, and like some of your best football players on this Clemson team are guys that won't be draft eligible, like T.J. Moore and Brian Wesco, Sammy Brown at linebacker. Really excited about Clemson, what they can do specifically on offense. It's a veteran offensive line, one of the better wide receiver rooms in the country, with K. Klubnik coming back for one more year. Bill Cardinal Tate, first wide receiver off the board. Like, who are the other this is a good question. Like, who are the other wide receivers that you think can emerge as like bona fide top 20 picks here?
That's like Makai Lemon is from USC. I do kind of
Like them,
agree.
love them,
Jacoby
love
Lane,
them.
though, if Jacoby Lane puts a like a
Agreed.
1,100 yard, I think he could be in that because again, really kind of unique traits. I mean, the size, but the ability to move the way he moves. He's
Yeah.
one I'm certainly kind of keeping my eye
Here's
on.
the thing with
And then
Jacoby
Evan
Lane.
Stewart. I know you're not. Evan Stewart is one I feel like you might be sleeping on a little bit because
Well, I got
I
burned
still
last year.
feel like there's something for him to get in terms of like
Yeah.
playing a really good.
I mean, I had Evan Stewart as a top 20 pick last year. And
He didn't play. Probably didn't play well enough
yeah.
last year. Again, in the certain moments, like that Ohio State game, he played at a certain level that was like, okay, maybe he's got it. It was certainly not consistent enough, but
Well, here's the thing with Evan Stewart, though. I think he's got the quarterback play to maybe utilize his skill sets a little bit more. Like, he's a guy that wants to work vertical track and field background out of high school. Dylan Gabriel, they weren't pushing the ball down the field a ton in that Oregon offense. It was pretty much like, hey, Tez Johnson in space, let's cook. I do think Evan Stewart has the opportunity to get a little bit more involved. Dill, my name, Jacoby Lane's a great shot out, by the way. He just got to, if we can get the separation and a little bit more of a developed route tree. I feel like last year it's like the flashy catches, the ball
but he's
skills are
also has
incredible.
like to me, he has the movement skills to run better routes because he is a good mover
Yes.
for that size. Like he
Yep.
does, I think he is smooth. I think he can get in and out of breaks. You said like he's just got to be a little more productive, and hopefully the quarterback play, frankly, studies itself a little bit because it wasn't good enough for him last year. He's one I look at. He's got some traits that I think would be really fun.
Suntarine Perkins, and just kind of figuring out what you're going to do with him, man. Kind of like the Harold Perkins comment. Like Harold Perkins been dealing with the injuries. I mean, if you can find a role for Suntarine Perkins that warrants a top 20 pick, he's going to do it because he is one of the better pure defenders that you see in all of college football. Isaiah World at tackle is fascinating. Like you talk about, all right, who are the tackles that have the opportunity to kind of catapult themselves into top 10 NFL draft picks? Like Isaiah World would have been picked in the NFL draft. I think what kind of kept him out is, now Oregon was aggressive to get him to come to Oregon. But number two, it's like, hey, we want to see our tackles that we're going to draft in the top 10 do it against the best competition. Like Isaiah Ward's going to have that opportunity in the Big Ten at Oregon this year. Everything you hear about him is like the sky's the limit. We just got to find that consistency. He's going to Oregon where you're seeing Tatum, Mateo U, Blake Purchase, every single Elijah Rushing every day in practice. Can't wait to see what Isaiah World can be in the 2025 year. Iron
Isaiah
sharp as
World's
iron.
one who can certainly, because again, like play himself into that range because he does have the tools. And like you even just look at that spring game from yesterday, like looked athletic enough, didn't look like he was a step behind or any of those things you would have been concerned with. Probably play strength to me is what you look for. It's like, is he
Yeah.
strong enough to be like again handle really good, powerful edge rushers like a Mateo U type
Well,
guy? Is
he's a
he strong
6'8"
enough to
kid.
move
It's you got to get your pads. I mean, I think that's probably it a little bit more is like the
and
leverage.
he's certainly a lean tackle for sure, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you do need to play strong enough. Like
Yep.
Caden Proctor, Maui, no, you don't worry about it. They're more, are they athletic enough? I mean, they're certainly both strong enough. Isaiah World probably like certainly athletic enough. Is his play strength going to be what it needs to be?
Davis and Igbinosun, big time upside. Just got to be less handsy. I mean, it's about as physical of a cornerback as you can find. Got caught up with some penalties last year. I'm fired up. He came back to Ohio State. Like I think it would have been easy for him coming off the national championship to head off to the NFL drafts, and I wouldn't have blamed him. It would have been selected. Excited for him to come back for one more year.
I'm a little surprised you have him above both Avian and Malik Muhammad. I think those
Here's
are
the thing
two.
with Avian Terrell. Here's the thing with Avian Terrell is I just don't. That's a little bit more of like what's the NFL think of him? A little bit shorter. Not really sure what the straight line speed is, and like you've seen these NFL nerds do that, where it's like, oh, if you're like, I'm gonna ignore the film and just say you're a little shorter, you're a little slower, we're gonna slide you down there.
I
But
think
we'll
so
see.
far to me though, both Malik and Avian Terrell, and they're not like playing in tiny conferences either. Like
Yeah,
I think they've played better football to this point, and I think frankly, especially in Malik Muhammad's case, he's probably been tested a little bit more by wide receivers because like the Big
yeah.
Ten, I think you still like again, Davison Igbinosun's had his moments against teams that are throwing a lot, yeah, being grabby, taking penalties. He did it against Nebraska, who again actually had pretty good boundary receivers. You saw him struggle with like tracking the ball and playing the ball. So those are some things that again, he's getting a little deep in his career to still excuse some of that stuff in my mind. Against guys like Malik Muhammad, Navy, and Terrell, who've been pretty steady for the most part.
Yeah, Malik, I can see the Malik Muhammad argument. There's
He's
some real upside
crazy
there.
traits on him, and he's starting to play much. He played really good football, I thought, last year. He struggled a little bit as a true freshman, but was really good last year.
Cassius Howell, probably one of the more twitchy Sackmaster. This is a Ferrari coming off the edge, and this is an edge class where it's a little bit more the heavy hands, right? Ruben Bain, Mateo U, Derek
Derek,
Moore, Cassius Howell is a Ferrari. He's a freaking Ferrari coming off the edge, and there are some NFL teams that's what they want. And if you want it, like Cassius Howell is that guy. Year two at the SEC level, Dill made the transition from Bowling Green to Texas A&M very well. Like was kind of the slept on guy. Everyone want to talk about Nick Score, and Cassius Howell is great. Fired up to see what he can do in 2025.
probably just needs to be more complete, is what I'd admit. Like again, can he play the run down and down out? Because he was obviously sitting behind Skirton and Shamar Stewart, so it's like he was not playing maybe as much as like a Danny Dennis Sutton, who's on the field pretty much all the time and playing really good football. Cassius Howell, like in terms of like pass rush traits, might have the best traits in the whole draft, or not probably not quite, but like he's right up there with anyone. I just don't know if his game is as complete as some of these other guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you see what I value. I want guys who can get it done against the run. I feel like nobody talks about that. I feel like we just gravitate towards sacks. And it's like, yeah, I want my edge. Like, look, if I'm drafting an edge rusher, I want them to be able to get after the passer, number one, but we got to be able to stop the run. How do you get in these third and long situations? You stop the run. Well, that's kind of why I have some of these guys higher than Cassius Howell. Dylan Tiedemann from Oregon, dog. And we only saw like 2 drives in the Oregon spring game. That dude, you just go back to his Purdue film. It's just like he's everywhere. He's just always around the football. You're like that's what I mean. You talk about safeties working their way into the first round. Caleb Downs, Dylan Tiedemann, having the special instincts. It's not just about the physical traits at that position. It's like, can you do everything? Can you see the game at an extremely high level? Both of these cats can do anything you want on the football field, but they also just see the game at kind of another level as opposed to a lot of other safeties across the country that are good.
I think Dylan Tiedemann is really good. And safety, again, they don't value that position particularly high in the league. So it's like, as just a pure player, he's probably quite a bit higher because Purdue was really impressive. I'm kind of excited to see what he does in the Oregon scheme where he maybe is
Oh,
asked to do a little bit more. Like
Dill,
against Purdue, he was mostly just a single high deep safety. That's I want to say he was pigeonholed. That's just what Purdue did. So that's where he was for the most part. I'm excited to see what he does. Oregon, I think, will move him around a little bit more and show a more diverse set of skills because I think he's got kind of all of it.
so that you talk about like transfer portal additions. That might be like one of the biggest ones. I just feel like Oregon in the back end like wasn't quite there with like the Ohio States in terms of, hey, can our defensive backs, are they big, strong, fast enough to like work against Ohio State wide receivers? Oregon's got that this year. Eric Singleton, probably sleeping on him a little bit, like really multi-dimensional kid that can just do anything you want at the wide receiver position. Can we end this one with like highlighting my darling? I was going to throw him in regardless, as Tyreek Sapp at Florida. Dale,
I
Florida's got some dudes flying under the radar. Know who you could also maybe talk about is George Gums on the other side. Well, again, why did I give Tyreek Sapp the nod? Is hammer against the run again, like how we talked about Derek Moore and how we talked about Mateo Yu, but also disruptive as a pass rusher. That Florida defensive front, there's some question marks about the depth. That front line, very very good. Like they're gonna have a lot of NFL picks on that unit.
in Tyreek Sapp, I don't think you necessarily put Gums up there yet because you haven't seen
Agreed.
sustained dominance. And you've like obviously coming over from I don't remember that small college he came from, but I think he was playing wide receiver before.
Yes.
So like you still see I mean, there's probably going to be more sustained, like really good play, like most of these guys have had, but there's certainly some trades. Tyreek Sapp, I mean, you've seen for now 2 or 3 years now, you've seen just really quality play
Well,
that's
that's
gotten
the
better
thing
and
is like,
better. Again, is he a
yeah,
great pass rusher? Probably not, but like, especially on the inside, I think he can be very serviceable and
well,
very,
yeah, he's very versatile. You can put him at the three tech because he is well
especially to
physically
rush the
taxed.
passer. That's kind of
Yeah,
where I see maybe in the NFL. It's like, again, I don't, in college, he's plenty good enough. He is disruptive on the edge as a pass rusher. I don't know he's an elite pass rusher at the
yep,
NFL level, but he is very. And again, I think in the league, he can probably rush from that three tech spot and be pretty good.
that'll do it. Any names that you want to give shout outs that I might be sleeping on here?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up my board here real quick. Torian York. I think
No, no.
Torian
See,
York and Whit Weeks are two guys who, and again, Torian York. Yeah, I know you'll probably argue he doesn't maybe have elite traits. I mean, one of the smartest players I've ever seen play that linebacker spot. He's just everywhere. And ditto for Whit Weeks. Whit Weeks was flying. I mean, he was just so hyper productive last year. Again, those two, are they elite linebackers like Anthony Hill? Probably not because they're not that type of
Dill, look at the
athlete. But those are
linebackers
two
who are
guys I
drafted.
think you can take at the back end of the.
No, but I'm like, look at the when teams are drafting off-ball linebackers, they're drafting the freaks, like a guy like Jahad Campbell. And this is not a shot at Torian York, but it's like, and again, this is like less of my evaluation of the player at the college level and more just like what are the GMs going to look at and say, wait, Torian York is what, maybe 5'10"? Is he's definitely not, I don't think he's 6 foot. You can fact check me on that, but I don't think he's that tall. And he's not going to run super fast. And I just have a very hard time. And I will say this still. I didn't see the step that I wanted to see from him year 1 to year 2.
Fair.
And so you're talking about a guy that probably doesn't have the ideal peak physical traits and a guy
Yeah,
that
that because
didn't
that
take
might be
this.
a good point. Like, is there a step to take? I mean, he was really good as a freshman. He was good as a sophomore. You're probably never going to get Anthony Hill out of him. Just he doesn't have that in him. But I do think he is a really good, really smart player.
I'll give you just like a few that I think could be interesting, like a Nick Harbor. Like there will be GMs that are drooling over this kid if he puts it together. I think that's a really fun one. We'll see. This what we have early.
I think Max Clare might surprise some people at Ohio
That's a good
State.
one.
He's got a really good chance to be hyper productive, and I do think he's probably to me
I just don't. I don't know
Kenyon,
if he's got a great chance to be hyper productive. He'd be the
I,
fourth
do, I
overall
don't
pass
think
catcher
you
in that
give
league.
him enough love for like. I think he's a really good route runner. From like, I think he can run like premier
Yeah, it
routes at
has
the tight
nothing
end
to do with
spot.
me not liking Max Clare. It's just like the production. I don't know if it's going to be there when you're talking about Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Inniss
And
and
again,
Miami Graham.
they Ohio State, you can maybe argue, is not used their tight ends a ton in their scheme, and for good reason. They have really good wide receivers, but Max Clare, I
Yeah,
think will be
that's
the
fair.
best tight end by quite a bit of margin that Ohio State's had in a pretty long time.
Could be
So I
fair.
haven't loved that tight end
Could be
spot.
fair. Trying to think of some other names. We'll probably have another conversation about this. It going to be a fun year. Gives us a sense of who are some of the better. And Dill, the crazy part is like we're talking about, all right, who are the best players in college football going into 2025?
Well, and I'll give you
Like,
one more, Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins is
well, he's got to, he's got to show me some. But what I was saying here, oh, hold on, I don't want you to ignore this idea here. Freaking ignoring me, pissing me off. I think, I think some of the best players in college football going into year two. Colin Simmons, Dylan
sure.
Stewart, DJ Lagway. That's
Jeremiah
that's what.
Smith.
That was. Thank you, Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman, Ryan Williams. It's like there's a lot of guys who are dogs as true freshmen that are not in this conversation. They certainly have to have in this conversation as well. We'll wrap it up there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. Hey, let it fly in the comment section. I know there are so many of y'all that are pissed, and I don't blame you. Like I don't feel great about this either. Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.